Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
So welcome everyone to this new session of the European Alliance Against Coronavirus forum. You know that today we are going to discuss a critical topic. In fact, the current shortages of chips and microelectronics, and the idea is to review where we and what it is been doing, what can we do in the future. Okay, in order to do so, we have invited all the cluster community, and also we have with us several representatives of DigiGrow. So thank you to all of you for coming. Please be proactive. Don't hesitate to share, to participate, and to contribute to the general discussion. But we'll start with Marek Sreor from DigiGrow that will introduce the situation, the topic, and the interest of the session. Thank you, Marek.
Yes. Thank you, Antonio. And we have this session as we continue with open and very close dialogue with the cluster community. The thing today is the discussion topic is on chips. Last time we discussed situation in wood. The main objective of this is to get the direct feedback from people who are working on the ground, who are in the business, both on the supply side. And that's why thank you very much, Frank Busenberg from Silicon Saxony, to join us and give us and set the scene later. But as well on the demand side, and I imagine Xavier Alberti from Gaia will give us some insight. But we want to hear from everyone who will join here, and so we will have the clusters which are directly dealing with microelectronics. But as well the clusters from all different ecosystems, be it automotive, be it construction, whoever is using chips in the business life. We know that the semiconductors issue started like being quite famous in the world globally. In the spring, many countries are taking the measures now. We heard about Taiwan willing to invest $100 billion for new semiconductor plants over the next 3 years. We know that there is a big movement in order to catch up with the situation of gaps in the supply chains across the world. We go through supply chains, and we know that in some parts of the supply chain or value chain, Europe is very strong, and I think we can discuss it where we can strengthen this. But as well, we know that even if we have top-notch research, Europe has lost the share of semiconductors from 22% globally in 1998 to 8% right now, but the same holds for the US. So I think the reason why we are having this is, of course, the issue with supply chain disruptions in the short term, but as well in the long term vulnerabilities which are related to the chips production and development. It's more complex than that, because there are different measures, that nanometers, and we want, as our commissioner Thierry Breton announced, we want to double our production of the semiconductors which are below 5 nanometers by 2030. We want as well, I mean, for this reason, it was announced that the CHIPS Act will be published by the Commission soon, and then we have as well started to work on the Semiconductor Alliance. So there are measures being taken, but this is all in progress, and we really want to have the voice of industry, and the clusters can give the feedback. We want to contribute to the whole industry with messages, with knowledge what is happening on the ground in real terms. So that's why, as usual, we count on clusters to share with us both on what is happening on the supply side and what are the issues, repercussions, and mitigation actions taken by the ecosystems on the demand side. So without further delay, Frank, thank you very much for joining us and setting the scene for what is happening on this chip market in Europe and globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marek. Thank you also, Antonio, and hello, everyone. I'm asking for sharing my screen. Yes. And you should be able to see the screen now. Okay. So the next 10 minutes, I will briefly give an overview on the situation of semiconductor production. You see already my habit and my attitude. Huh? It's only together we stand strong. So it's about European semiconductors in a globalized world. In the beginning, 2 slides as short advertisement block to our own cluster. So who and what is Silicon Saxony? We are a region and also a cluster in Saxony in Germany, south of Berlin, with more than 70,000 employees. In the microelectronics and ICT sector, we are proud for the claim that every 3rd chip that is still being produced in Europe has the label made in Saxony or even made in Dresden. But I will show in a minute what this is worth on the global scale. And on the other hand, our own cluster, gold labeled for the 4th time now, with 14 employees. So we call ourselves a mature cluster. Still, we are independent. We are not state financed. So we are a private cluster taking care of networking within the region and the industry and beyond. So next slide is the semiconductor value chain. And Dresden is particularly strong here in this field, in the production of chips. So in the center, as we have 4, or if you count even 5 fabs, microelectronic fabs. But there's more in the value chain, and the whole chip crunch became visible when on the application side, and in this big bubble, mainly the mobility automotive sector experienced a lack of chips, as they are much more connected to each and everyone. They made it visible, but in fact, there's a lack of chips in each and every sector as the industry supplies literally in every other industry field you can imagine in Europe, but also worldwide. So semiconductors are really key ingredients for all relevant industries. That's important to understand. And the other thing, it's a highly consolidated industry already globally, defined by still only very few countries. And you see that I listed PRC and ROC, so Taiwan and mainland China, as 2 countries, which is a political issue in itself. Then we have US, South Korea, Japan, and Europe, and no region, that's also important to understand, no region has the full value chain under control or in its own region. So it's really also globally connected. The next chart is from SEMI, the Global Semiconductor Association, but we are the Korean Trade Ministry, so watch the source. But if you look carefully, you will see that there is Europe not even listed anymore as a player. But Europe is among the rest of the world. I mean, to be honest, there's not much rest beyond Europe, and it's a Korean way of showing it. But anyway, figures are validated, and as a matter of fact, Europe is far away from leading in this industry, at least totally. And yeah, depending on from where you watch, we not even play a relevant role. Marek already told it. It's a 8% market share. To be honest, the memory chips, Europe went out of the memory chip production in 2009 by the bankruptcy of Qimonda, one of the darkest hours of our cluster. In logic, we are still much more competitive. So looking at the overall volume, European companies play a minor role only. In the sensor field and discrete semiconductors, and in particular in automotive ICs, we still play a major role. And also the fabs that are in Dresden and also in Grenoble, for instance, and in Netherlands, they mainly supply the automotive industry. So there's a lot of know-how there available still. There are some European players that are partly even world market leaders in their niche, Infineon for power semiconductors, etc. And there are also some companies that play important roles as suppliers. And I want to mention here first and foremost ASML. It's a Dutch company providing some machinery, and they are really number one, literally, and the only ones supplying this certain kind of machines globally. So they are one of Europe's strongest assets. Also, if you think about negotiating with other parts of the world. And yeah, if you look further down the value chain, for instance, Siltronic for wafer production, for materials, there are some others as well. But again, no region, no continent, no country owns everything. Europe has some assets, but we are, as every other region, far away from being independent or autonomous. So no country even comes close to being self-reliant. We see, in particular, China and the US in going on a strategic path for getting there, becoming self-reliant, much more independent. But the industry as such relies on high division of labor, with companies focusing on particular technologies or production steps. So it's still a globally distributed value chain. So every shake in this really balanced value chain is of course dramatic, and this also affects if just transportation chains are disrupted. You also see the effect. So there is a three-step approach suggested by a study that was mentioned before. I had it here. No, I will come later. It's a study from a think tank that is based in Berlin, and they suggested a three-step approach, which sounds very credible and senseful. It's first to make sure that you have access to foreign technologies from those to those suppliers or companies that you need access to. Second is how to build leverage by strengthening domestic companies, and domestic in that case means clearly Europe. There's a clear strategy for China, made in China 2025, and for Europe we have the instrument of IPCI, the Integrated Project of Common European Interest, something that proved to be extremely useful already. So if you are in the scene, you might have realized that Bosch opened Europe's first new semiconductor fab after 10 years, just 5 months ago in Dresden. And this was possible due to IPCI 1 of microelectronics. Currently, there's IPCI 2 for microelectronics and connection technologies under preparation. And speed in this instrument is crucial because this proved to be really helpful for the industry. And the third and last step, and I guess we will discuss this further on, is how to foster and support a more resilient supply chain by local and regional R&D and innovation. I already made the claim that only together we stand strong. That's why also we as Silicon Saxony teamed up with other relevant microelectronics and ICT regions in Europe quite some years ago, in 2012 basically, and formed this joint brand of Silicon Europe. I'm happy that Xavier will represent Gaia later on. Gaia is one of the members of Silicon Europe. Others are in France, Grenoble, in Leuven, Belgium, in Eindhoven, Netherlands, Austria, Italy. So those are countries, Mobile Heights in Sweden, those are countries that still have a relevant industry in this field. So unfortunately, you see the whole eastern part of Europe is not strong anymore. I just see that we miss Portugal in this map because we have a Portuguese member now, luckily, as well. And now the link to Europe's plans. You know the digital compass for 2030. You have heard already by Marek that the EU wants to double the EU share in global production in cutting-edge semiconductors. That's good. We appreciate this. And that's the water into the wine. That's planned subsidies in billions of dollars in a global benchmark. And you see what other regions will invest. The 100 million were mentioned by Marek already. South Korea alone said they will invest 430 billion. And US and Europe are somehow similar, but they want to catch up with this investment, which is on a global scale, not even leading. So you see the challenges that are connected to strengthening this industry. It's an industry that is highly being subsidized in other regions of the world. Whether this is fair or not fair, it's not my business to judge this. But as a matter of fact, it's far away from being a free market. Yeah, so as a conclusion, semiconductor production has a huge leverage on economy. We see this, unfortunately, in several fields. The domestic production is one way to minimize risk due to geopolitical or geophysical frictions. As I said, if the industry already experienced troubles when the Icelandic volcano broke out some years ago. I'm not able to pronounce the name correctly. But already then, our industry realized what it means if transport chains are disrupted. The industry is dominated by very, very few players, and state aids are being used strategically by China, US, and also by Korea, at least. Europe needs to find its current position. The CHIPS Act, the announcement have been made. Only together we stand strong. So it's not a Saxonian issue. It's not a German issue. It's a European issue, clearly. Speed is important. That is still missing on this slide. And if you want to read more, I can recommend strongly two sources. One is an article, a longer article by Evgeny Morozov in Le Monde Diplomatique. If you Google it, you will find it, Chips with Everything, which really explains very, very, very well how the things are interconnected. And another one is a 1-hour video of Thierry Breton with Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of Intel, published on YouTube. If you Google Breton and Chips Crunch, you will find it. It's on the EU third way to strategic autonomy in semiconductors. And with that, I want to hand over to Xavier. Thank you for your attention and looking forward to our discussion. Thanks.
Okay, Frank, thanks very much for the clear presentation. I'm going to try to share mine now, if I may. Just hang on a bit. Let me see if it works. Okay, are you able to see my screen now? Yes? Okay, so good morning, yes, everyone.
Not in full screen mode. If you could put it in full screen mode, it will be better.
Now. Just hang on a bit. Maybe if I made it here. Is it better now?
No, it's perfect. Yes, now it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. And in the first place, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to start the project. My name is Xavier, and I will briefly introduce you with one of the main strategic developments of our cluster, which links to the microeconomic development of our region, that is the Basque Country, as Frank was saying, is one of the members of the Alliance. So I will go through the information pretty fast, since I have been assigned with 15 minutes to explain it. And in any case, should you have any question, please stop me or post it at the end of the presentation. Also, the presentation will be at your disposal in case you might want to share it or you might want to revise it. So, okay, the microelectronic ecosystem is in the first place a regional answer to the external dependency and increased costs that Frank was explaining us. And our association just designs and leads the movement in this initial phase in our country. We are trying to organize and engage the European movement represented in this IPSE and other useful developments that are arising, and we want to be useful to it in terms of investment, production, and also consumption across almost all of our regional value chains, which are mainly industrial and automotive in nature, as we were listening. These semiconductors are almost everywhere.
Xavier, You
Yeah.
have not advanced now. Okay, perfect.
Yes, I will. Yes, I was doing just a brief introduction to the information. So in terms of contents, in this short presentation, I will describe our regional microelectronic ecosystem, the program that we have developed so far, and a little summary and next steps. So in the first place, just hang on a bit because I cannot see the presentation now. Okay, about our association, we are the Applied Knowledge and Technology Industries in the Basque Country. We are over 310 organizations now. And our aim is to promote collaborative innovation and create globally competitive solutions based on our own knowledge and technologies, consulting, engineering, electronics, computing, etc. The main aims of our strategy are three. The first one is to deeply understand the sectorial problems. On the top of this introduction that we were listening to, we need to understand the relation between this crisis and our specific problems here in the Basque Country. So we are trying to redefine our value chains on microelectronics. We are trying to incorporate new members, their experience and their relative weights, and interpret the main flows and relationships in these value chains. In the second place, we are trying to unify the sectoral voice and motivation. We are writing a report. We are trying to intermediate and integrate the will and the vision of all the sector. We are more than 80 organizations now in this strategy. And we are trying to, as I was saying, create a mission and a vision. For what? We are doing this in order to co-lead transformative initiatives. We are trying to identify emerging opportunities, intermediate among specialized work groups, define new programs, and represent the sectoral interests precisely in Europe. About the challenges, the sectoral challenges, there are two main challenges that we are trying to face. The first is to promote a microelectronic ecosystem as an open and integrating node for reflection and action, representing the experience and regional sectoral knowledge. And the second would be to align the microeconomic ecosystem with respect to other initiatives, strategies, and ecosystems, particularly towards those of nation and international scope, as this is say that we were saying that is fostered by Bosch in Europe. In terms of stakeholders, as I was saying, we are more than 80 organizations involved so far because this is an ongoing project. We are private entities. We are collaborating with the educative system, with the intermediary system, the R&D system, public agencies, institutions, and the entrepreneurial system. We have developed a first attempt to boost our regional electronic value chains, which is this one. You can be the main links. I'm not going to, go too deep on this because it's out of the scope of the presentation. But what we are trying to do is to place our organizations in these links, particularly the raw materials, the foundry, the industrial demand, the distribution and service, the maintenance, and the recycling and waste management. So we are trying to know where do we have experience, solutions, investment, projects, and organizations, and where do we not, in order to try to focus on a strategy, try to develop where we don't have this experience. Our industries, as I was saying, the industrial demand, which is at the core of this value chains, is mostly related to energy, automotion, and also the machinery industries of the Basque Country. The current status of our strategy, we have developed a public questionnaire that we have shared with these 80 organizations because we're trying to develop these value chains not for just to have a picture, but on the top of that, in order to include the organizations in their precise links, so that we may know whether they are 10 here, 10 there, none here, none there. And after that, in order to develop new strategies and projects related to that, and also, of course, the investments. On the second part, we are trying to write a report, which is the commitment of all our sector. And in order to present this report in the Spanish ministries and also in Europe. And this report is almost finished, and we are translated into English now. And on the third place, we are developing an individual placement in this program that we are going to put in common now. And this is a participatory construction of the ecosystem. We are trying to listen and to put in common these ideas with all the organizations involved. So in terms of results, we are focusing on 4 main results of the project. The first one is to gather and gain public recognition of our ecosystem in the Basque Country. The second one is to be able to witness new developments and interaction and dynamics among the participants. On the third place, to prove progress in overcoming the fragmentation that we have in the Basque Country. The Basque Country is very different from Germany, for example, in terms of the size of the organizations. Most of the organizations that we have here in the Basque Country are less than 10 people, and this fragmentation is no good when we are talking about this sector that, as Frank was saying, is a global value chains, and the organizations are huge. And in the fourth place, we are trying to promote innovative technologies by means of collaborating with the research centers. So now I'm going to explain a little bit the second point, which deals with our program. We have developed a first version in collaboration with 10 technological centers. We share the vision, and consequently, we have signed an agreement in order to boost the strategy together with them. Some of these technological centers are very widely known, as for example, Tecnalia, Ikerlan, Cignanogun, etc. All of them are under the coordination of BRTA, which is the second research conglomerate in terms of size in Europe, after Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. And the projects and the organizations are integrated in these common lines. We have designed 6 common lines, and all the projects and all the organizations that we were speaking about are going to gather around these lines and these projects that I'm going to briefly introduce today. So not going to be very precise on this, since it will also be out of scope of the presentation, just to say that the program investment currently surpasses the 50 million euros investment. So what we're doing is to create 6 lines complementary. The first one is the new materials and components, and we have listed the number of projects that are currently being developed, as for example, the creation of a foundry for 200 nanometers semiconductor production, self-powered communications, thermal management. There are many, and you can go through them if you want to after when you have this presentation in common back again. We are talking about quantics as well. We have 3 projects related to quantics. We have 3 projects related to embedded and edge computing. We have 3 projects related to communications, whether wireless or not, related to lower consumption communications, 5G, cyber, etc. We have 3 projects also related to cybersecurity, and we are trying to foster a certification assessment body here in the Basque Country also, which might be one of the main projects. And just to make a brief summary of the commitment and just to put in common the next steps, what we're trying to do in the first place is to develop a relevant ecosystem and to link this ecosystem to the initiatives and the strategies that are being developed in Europe. We have listened already that we need to collaborate if we want to do something strategic in microelectronics here in Europe. And after that, in terms of commitments, we are trying to position all the organizations in these value chains. We are going to position all the organizations across these technological and sectorial programs that I was telling you about. And we are going to improve and ratify a sectoral report that is going to represent the voice of the sector, and we are going to present this report in Spain, in the ministries, and also in Europe, trying to connect our strategy to that strategy that is being developed in other parts of Europe. And in terms of next steps, since this strategy has been developed for just some months, like 6 months ago, we are putting in common this questionnaire with the organizations. We are trying to share this information at the regional, national, and international levels, and we are going to have a next meeting with the organizations by the end of December. So this is so far the presentation, and of course, if you have any question, please bring them forward and we can comment on it. And thank you very much for listening.
You're very welcome, Xavier. Thank you for sharing with us the kind of action that the clusters can develop to face the situation. And now is the moment to open the floor for comment, contributions, informations coming from the rest of the attendants. So the floor is open. There is a question from Marek in the chat, who could share with us your experiences on what is happening now at the market. Are you suffering from disruptions? Who is the first?
Yes, Antonio. Can I make a short question to Frank? A very, very short question.
Sorry, Antonio. Sorry, I think it's the first time that I connect to a GoToMeeting meeting. So I think that I was out of the meeting. I don't know. Sorry for that.
Don't worry. There is. We have just opened the floor for question. Go on, okay, please.
Yes. I'd like to make a very short question to Frank. Frank, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. How do you see that Europe could solve this lack of supply chains with a better partnership with the US and eventually with also China? How do you think we could change the mindset on this matter? Because here in Portugal, and I give also my contribution, we are also suffering a lot from this process. We have here a very important Volkswagen automotive factory that was closed already several weeks. We have also other companies that are suffering a lot. And I don't know if it would be possible to try to settle a new partnership between the US, China, Europe. What do you think about that? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So first, and we also lobby for this. I guess it's important that the own domestic industries in automotive, in the first instance, understands also the importance of semiconductor production. I mean, they learned it the hard way now, in particular German automotive companies. We see clear improvement in their habit and also commitment towards our industries. But this has to be enlarged also to other fields of industry. So first of all, European industries have to understand how strategically important semiconductors are for their very own products. Then the industry will see better support. That's the first aspect. And the second one, as I showed in my charts, we are unfortunately too small as Europe, as entire Europe, to be able to choose between US and China. We should serve both or deal with both, trade with both. So we also lobby for very open trade and trade policies into all directions globally, because the danger that we see is that we get into the front between China and US. So our view is that we should cooperate with both parts of the world, and that the economic optimum will only be achieved if this will be continued and not one region tries to become or tries to do everything for being fully autonomous. It doesn't mean that we do not lobby for more resilience within the continent. We should strengthen our position, but also in the long term, it will most probably be impossible to become fully independent as Europe from other regions in the world. So good connections to all regions of the world, including US and including China, should be on the agenda.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, who wants to share your experiences? Are you suffering disruptions? Elona, I see. Perhaps. No, you are muted. You are muted, Elona. Sorry, I see that you are speaking, but you are muted. Your voice is not, your sound is not activated. Okay, anyone?
Hi, hello, good morning. I am Borja da Pena from Galician Automotive Cluster from CEAGA. Thank you, Xavier, and thank you, Frank. I have a question. Are you studying the numbers of the factories about the microchips that Europe need in order to close this crisis? I don't know if it's
No.
an easy, easy
Yeah, no,
repeat.
to be honest, I do not have a figure for that in mind. I know that there's a global up-ramping of capacity taking place right now. So with Infineon investing, with Bosch further up-ramping its capacities, also global foundries in all areas of the world, not only in Europe, but also in Singapore and in the US. But I do not have figures at hand of how many fabs, additional fabs would be needed. The only figures I hear regularly is that that it's not expected that that this situation will really improve before mid of 2022.
Thank you, Frank.
Borja, are you aware of problems in the automotive plants and suppliers that you are representing in Galicia?
Yeah, we have all regions in Europe. I think the automotive sector have a lot dependence of the microchips. In fact, yesterday I read the news about BEU that reduced the number of the microchip in the screens on the car. And we are in the same situation that our regions. We have a big factory in our region, that is Stellantis factory, that produce 500,000 vehicles per year. And the situation is the same than in Europe. The same.
Yes, I can share as cluster idea in Aragon that we have several of our members suffering with, I would say, intensively this kind of problems. One of for sure is the plant of Stellantis here in Aragon, but also, for example, Bosch Siemens electrodomestics home appliance, that for sure they are lacking a lot of production due to the lack of the components that they need, the microelectronics components. So this is a reality. They are reducing the production plans and the deliveries and losing opportunities to sell. I see that there is a comment in the chat from Cesare Danke. Welcome, Cesare. Would you share with us your initiatives from Grow?
Yes, indeed. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can see you and hear you. Welcome.
Fantastic.
Would
Yeah, thank you very much.
Would you like to present, or do you want to?
No, I don't have anything to present other than verbally. No, it's the first time I'm using this platform as well, so just getting the head kind of wrapped around it. But thank you very much for the presentations. It's super great to see, I think, really on the cluster level how much knowledge, industry knowledge there is due to that close contact with the different companies. I basically just wanted to take the floor very briefly to mention a couple of things, building on what Marek talked about at the start. of course, we have this upcoming EU Chips Act with a kind of final deliverable for Q2 next year. So so speed is definitely an element that's taken into the equation if you just look at the deadlines. But kind of in that semiconductor work stream, we have kind of two elements that we're starting to explore now in DG Grow, and it's really, thank you for the invite for this meeting, because it's really kind of the audience that I think is going to be really, poignant for these 2 points. So the kind of one of the first elements that we're looking at is a kind of industrial mapping to understand kind of where the players are in Europe along the semiconductor value chain, and also try to gauge where Europe then sits within the kind of global framework of this international semiconductor value chain. So this is one of the exercises that I think we're slowly starting at the moment, and perhaps also where, and I'm kind of thinking a little bit more, at Frank and Silicon Saxony, maybe this is something which could be interesting in kind of uncovering where our players are in Europe, and kind of gauging a kind of visualization of where we are, where our strengths and weaknesses are along the semiconductor value chain. But another work stream that we're looking at is launching a survey to essentially, I think, a little bit build on some of the questions that have been shared with stakeholders, and also build a little bit on the survey that Javier mentioned, and it's kind of to gauge a little bit what is the issues that we are facing with our end users. So kind of, be it for example, the automobile industry, what are some of the issues that they are facing when it comes to chips? In which types of chips? Have they changed any of their business activities due to this kind of chip crunch? So really to try to understand a little bit on the demand side of things, what's going on, what are the kind of fluctuations in the market, and how are companies responding to that. So those two work streams are something which it's in the conception phase, I think, right now, and we would be expecting to launch a survey on kind of a European scale to try to uncover some of those elements. So so this is kind of a little bit to announce that this is something that is expected to either this year or early next year be launched. And we're going to be essentially working out in the kind of focus a little bit of what we were discussing now, with the focus on the demand and how these chips crunch had impacted the end user. So I think, like, through Marek, maybe we can coordinate if there was a possibility to kind of incorporate some of the expertise that's within this room. I think that could be really, really great, but something to be looked at, I think, further down the road. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Good morning. Laure Quintin, Minalogic. Minalogic is cluster in France, also for microelectronics and largely ICT. Cesare, when you mean end users, do you mean users from the application domains? Because this was less mentioned, but the microelectronics and the semiconductor is, in that sense, in Europe, incredibly rich, because it has a very large, it represents a very large number of companies that are like satellites around it. Yeah, you have smaller companies that have expertise in security of chips or in a banded system. When before it becomes an end product, you need a lot of expertises to be able to to use this chip. Yeah, and these companies are also were very strong impacted, because they couldn't work. They had a lot of contracts, they had a lot of demand, but they couldn't work because they didn't have the chip in itself. So this was for our ecosystem, in addition to the chip manufacturer, of course, very difficult. And can they be considered as end user from the Commission's point of view, or they are like suppliers or providing expertise for the chips, you know, like when you, I don't know if I am clear.
Yes, no, thank you for your question. And I think the short answer is yes, they can also be you know, included as end user. I think the focus is really kind of on, if we think of, because it's a bit, of course, tricky to where you draw the line, but if we kind of think of the end users as the companies that are affected by the crunch in chips, then I think for sure, you know, that could well be within the scope. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
okay, yeah, there are direct suppliers of expertise to this chip manufacturer to help them having the chips reliable, secure, communicant. I don't know if I can. So all those this ecosystem that is in between the chip manufacturer and the end user. And that is very, very rich and very, very innovative. Frank was mentioning that one of Europe's strengths is innovation and research, and all the small are the ones that innovate more or less the most to produce the end user solutions.
Laurie, do you have more details about the kind of disruption that your companies are suffering if they are coming from the same country or with a specific brand? Or would you be able to give us more information, perhaps in the future, not just today?
No, I might have, you know, when you get a chip, then it needs first to be, Frank could better explain than me, but it needs to be packaged, you know, in a circuit, yeah, in an electronic circuit. And here you have a lot of innovation in Europe for the circuit being, for example, energy less, yeah, not energy harvesting, yeah. You have a lot of innovation in electronics for making electronic system consuming less energy and so on, no? For example. But you need the chip first to develop the whole energy and system. For example, this is more or less one example that I have in mind, and it's very
So yeah, yes, I understand that you need the chips to develop the boards, no, the applications. Good, thank you for the contribution. It's very concrete. So Frank, do you have any comment to Cesar, two ideas, or Xavier?
Yeah, I just already voted into the chat. We had this project of Silicon Europe quite some years ago, where we did this this SWOT also for the European ecosystem, only for 5 countries by that time, but it's a good starting point, I think. And then I just want to reassure your observation that speed is crucial in the process. I just want to double underline this. So in various interviews, I said that the world is not waiting for Europe. So right now there's a global up-ramping of capacities. I just want to state again that production in semiconductor fabs runs 24/7, each and always. Otherwise, they are not economically useful. So up-ramping is not easily possible by adding another shift. It's not possible because they run 24/7 already. You need to buy new machines, etc. And that's why it takes a little bit of time. But this is what takes place right now in every part of the world that still has semiconductor production, and Europe should do the same. And IPCI is a great instrument, should be implemented as fast as possible. and then I see good chances. And then just for the figures, I mean, Marek, you said we have 8% of market share, depending on the way of counting. It's 6, 8, 9, whatever. We want to achieve 20%. That's the goal up to 2030, but it's still a growing market. So in the end, what it means is that we not even double our share. We have to quadruple the production, and this just as a message to each and everyone. Also, send your children to employment in the microelectronics sector, or send it to education there. It's a future-proof industry. Europe will play its role also in 5 or 10 years, and we are working that together with all the partners that are present here.
Okay, so Cesare, just to make it clear, I think that you can count with our full collaboration, okay, from the European Cluster Alliance and I will say the cluster environment, okay, as just explore through Marek or through the unit how to contribute to your efforts, okay.
Antonio, if you don't have further contributions from the colleagues, let me put two things. I put it in chat. One is looking for alternatives for microchips in the traditional way of thinking. I would say challenging the whole microelectronic ecosystem. You see, there's lots of going on in Europe on photonic chips, which can replace or be an alternative. Even better in some cases. So this is something definitely we in Europe should think of, and clusters think of it as well. And the other, you just published yesterday the position of Digital Europe organization on semiconductor strategy for Germany and Europe, with quite good suggestions and recommendations for policymakers, meaning us and Cesar. Definitely we need to look at it deeply, and I'm happy because we can incorporate the whole cluster committee and the knowledge what Cesar was already saying into this work on Chip Act, and give this dimension of users as well, and producers, but users as well. And I think this we can like kick off the process of working together. And I think Cesar could use this in order as well to incorporate the knowledge and specific. What you mentioned is exactly this. And in our in value chain, you have the support activities. Besides the primary activities, which primary activities would not be able to exist without this support. You put an additional element here that EU companies, they are SMEs, are very strong in this, in applications of chips. So I think this should be raised as well. That this is our power in Europe to have this knowledge and capacity, which is omitted. I was preparing for this meeting and I was nobody mentioned this. So Lord, thank you very much for this. So if of course we are very keen on listening from clusters on any cases, even anecdotal issues that are happening in shortages of chips in Europe, and Mariel would like to contribute. So Mariel, please.
You are muted, Mariel. Bonjour. We are not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Now.
Yeah, great. Sorry. Thank you, Marek. I just wanted to follow up on what Frank said. I'm from Pôle SCS. Pôle SCS is a cluster which is also a member of the Silicon Europe Alliance, together with the Silicon Saxony, Gaia, Minalogic, among others. Several of you have mentioned indeed the shortage in different industry, including automotive, but this impact is also strong on SMEs These are also members of our clusters. For example, small companies which develops IoT solutions for any kind of applications are also strongly suffering on that because they don't have the same buying capacities as large organizations. And sometimes they are imposed by larger manufacturers to buy a minimum quantity of products because of this shortage, and they are not aligned and they are not in a position to buy this required quantity, and it really corresponds to a difficult situation on them. So both the minimum quantity to be bought and also the delay. So it's like a double impediments that are on their shoulders. So since the application domain is also extremely relevant to SMEs, they are also important not to be forgotten within this landscape. IoT applications are very extremely strong examples and concrete examples on what we can face within our cluster, for example. And I do also underline the need of recruitment and training in microelectronics and more globally in IT that Frank has expressed just before. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Marielle. That's a very good point. I have heard several times during the last week the same comment about the power of the large companies to buy whenever there are problems in the market. Okay, the large companies have the capacity to buy at a higher prices and to negotiate better, and the SMEs are those that are losing the opportunities sometimes to buy or having longer terms to receive the goods, and that is happening not only in microelectronics, but it's one of the problems that we are suffering for sure. There are companies that are stocking for their needs, but mostly those are the big ones. So very good point, Mariel. Thank you. We have 2 minutes left. Who wants to make the last comment? Xavier, you are invited.
Well, in the first place, to say that it was a very interesting meeting. I was just wondering whether the exercise that we are doing now here at the level of the Basque Country with the questionnaires, with the strategy, with the value chains, whether it could also be useful for other regions that are maybe engaged in the alliance. I don't know, Frank, or maybe for DG Grow. I don't know, it's something just to think about it, since we have been developing this path of work together with a lot of organizations, and we might be maybe in a point where we can share this information and this experience with you in order to gather a strategy all together.
Perfect. Here you have Cesar and the rest the invitation for collaboration from our side. I think that it has been clearly expressed today that the cluster approach allowed to grow a strong ecosystem, okay? That is especially critical for our SMEs if we want to let them grow, to facilitate their growth. If we speak about resilience, it seems very clear that we need to take that approach on account. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for to Frank and to Xavier, to Marek, and to all of you for your contributions. And let's continue working on it. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.